Choosing who you have a child with may be the most important decision of your life, and one of the most costly mistakes you can make is believing parenthood will change someone who has never shown the character to sustain it. Too many people ignore red flags, hoping he'll mature when the baby comes. Responsibility will transform him. Love will make him step up. Fatherhood will awaken something in him. But parenthood does not create discipline, empathy, patience, or accountability. Before you build a family with him, few decisions shape a person's life more profoundly than who they choose to have children with. The wrong partner can cost more than heartbreak, more than wasted time, more than emotional pain. The wrong partner can alter the course of your life for decades. Because when a child enters the picture, temporary mistakes become permanent ties. A bad boyfriend can be left behind. A bad husband can be divorced. But a bad father may remain connected to your life through your child forever. And yet many people choose the father of their children based on hope rather than evidence. They believe he will mature when the baby comes. He will become more responsible under real pressure. Fatherhood will change him. Love will transform him. Commitment will make him grow. But life teaches a harsher truth. Parenthood does not create character. It reveals it. A child does not transform irresponsibility into discipline. It magnifies irresponsibility. A child does not heal emotional immaturity. It exposes emotional immaturity. A child does not teach empathy to someone who lacks it. It demands empathy they may not possess. Many painful family stories begin not with shocking betrayal, but with ignored warning signs, signs dismissed as, he's just immature, he'll grow out of it. He's had a hard life. He's different with me. He means well. But intentions do not raise children. Character does. This book is not about judging people for imperfection. No one is flawless. No one enters parenthood fully prepared. Everyone carries weaknesses, wounds, and areas needing growth. This book is about recognizing the difference between human imperfection and dangerous patterns. It is about learning to identify the behavioral traits, emotional habits, and psychological patterns that often predict whether a man is prepared or unprepared for the demands of fatherhood. Because the greatest mistakes in life are rarely sudden. They are often made slowly, through ignored red flags, rationalized behavior, and hope placed above evidence. If you are considering building a family with someone, this book asks one central question. Who is this person when life becomes difficult? Because that is the version of them your child will know best, not the charming version, not the romantic version, not the version seen on easy days, but the version that emerges under pressure, sacrifice, exhaustion, and responsibility. That is the man who will parent your child. Choose carefully. The rest of your life may depend on it. Chapter 1. Avoids responsibility in other areas of life. The man who never carries the weight. Understanding avoidance of responsibility as a warning sign. One of the clearest predictors of how someone may behave as a parent is how they handle responsibility before parenthood ever enters the picture. Responsibility is not selective. A person who consistently avoids accountability in work, finances, relationships, and daily obligations rarely transforms overnight when a child arrives. In fact, parenthood often magnifies existing character traits rather than fixing them. Many people mistake irresponsibility for bad luck, stress, or temporary immaturity. But there is a difference between someone struggling through a hard season and someone who has made avoidance their lifestyle. What responsibility avoidance looks like psychologically. At its core, chronic responsibility avoidance often stems from externalized blame. They believe life happens to them, never because of them. Fragile ego protection. Admitting fault threatens their self-image, so they shift blame. Low frustration tolerance. They quit when tasks become difficult or inconvenient. Entitlement. They expect others to absorb the consequences for them. Emotional immaturity. They want adult privileges without adult burdens. Such a person may say, "My boss just hates me." "All my exes were crazy. I got fired because people were jealous." Bills are stupid anyway. You worry too much. The pattern is not the occasional excuse, and the pattern is never being at fault. When Nia met Marcus, he was charming, funny, magnetic, the kind of man who made every room brighter. He told stories about how his former employer screwed him over, how his landlord was out to get him, how his ex turned everyone against him. At first, Nia sympathized. Life can be unfair. But then she noticed the pattern. Marcus changed jobs 4 times in 18 months. Every departure was someone else's fault. The manager was disrespectful, co-workers were jealous, the hours were unreasonable, the pay wasn't enough. He borrowed money often. He forgot to pay the bills. His car was repossessed because, according to him, the bank was tripping over one late payment. He promised Nia he'd help plan their future. But every serious conversation ended the same. Stop stressing. We'll figure it out. Why are you always making things a problem? Then Nia became pregnant. Marcus was excited at first. He posted the ultrasound online, talked about being the best dad ever, bought baby shoes for pictures. But when reality arrived, so did the pressure. The baby cried through the night. Diapers needed changing. Doctor appointments cost money. Rent was due. Work became essential. Marcus began disappearing. He stayed out later, complained more, argued when asked for help. His new phrases became, "You act like I'm the only one responsible. I need space too. You're always nagging. You knew I wasn't ready for all this." Soon he missed pediatric appointments, forgot formula, spent money meant for diapers on stress relief, quit another job after a conflict with his supervisor. And every time Nia confronted him, the blame shifted. The baby's mother was too demanding. Work was too stressful. Society expected too much from fathers. Marcus had not become irresponsible after the child was born. He had simply become more visibly what he had always been. The baby did not create the problem. Responsibility revealed it. Parenthood is relentless. It requires showing up when tired, sacrificing comfort, planning ahead, managing money, regulating emotions, putting another human first every day. Someone who cannot responsibly manage their own schedule, their own finances, their own commitments, their own accountability, is often unequipped for the sustained pressure of fatherhood. Do not evaluate potential based on intentions. Evaluate patterns based on behavior. Anyone can say, "I'll be different when I have a child." But character rarely changes because circumstances demand it. Usually, stress doesn't create character, it exposes it. Chapter 2 shows little empathy. The man who cannot feel with you. Why lack of empathy is one of the most dangerous parenting red flags. Empathy is not softness. It is not a weakness. It is not simply being nice. Empathy is the psychological ability to understand another person's emotional experience, care that they are hurting, respond in a way that acknowledges their humanity. A person who lacks empathy may still appear charming, funny, intelligent, or affectionate when life is easy. But empathy is not measured by how someone treats people during comfort. It is measured by how they respond when someone is in pain, overwhelmed, vulnerable, or in need. And parenthood is built almost entirely on responding to vulnerability. A baby cannot regulate its emotions. A child cannot always explain fear, sadness, frustration, or confusion. To be a good parent requires the ability to think, "This child is struggling, not attacking me." This emotion needs understanding, not punishment. Their distress matters, even when it inconveniences me. Without empathy, a parent often interprets a child's needs as irritation rather than dependence. What low empathy looks like in real life. People with low empathy often mock emotional expression. "You're too sensitive." Become annoyed when others are upset. Minimize pain. It's not that serious. Show concern only when the issue affects them. Lack of patience for vulnerability. Turn emotional conversations into criticism. They may not seem cruel at first. Often they simply appear emotionally cold, dismissive, impatient, or self-centered. But over time, that emotional absence becomes deeply damaging in family life. Alicia first noticed it in small moments. When she cried after losing her grandmother, Jordan hugged her briefly and said, "Everybody dies eventually. You can't let stuff destroy you." When she told him work had become overwhelming, he replied, "You overthink everything." When her younger sister had a panic attack during dinner, Jordan rolled his eyes. "People are way too dramatic these days." He was not overtly cruel. He simply seemed untouched by other people's pain. Alicia told herself, he just isn't emotional. Then they had a son. At first, Jordan loved the image of fatherhood. He loved holding the baby when the baby was smiling, loved the pictures, loved compliments from others. But when the baby cried endlessly through the night, Jordan's patience collapsed. He would mutter, "Why is he always crying?" "He's doing this for attention. You baby him too much." As their son grew into a toddler, normal developmental behavior enraged him. When the child cried after falling, "Stop crying, you're fine." When the child was scared of the dark, "That's stupid, there's nothing there." When the child had tantrums, "He's manipulating you." Jordan saw emotional needs not as needs, but as inconveniences, weakness, annoyance. And because he could not emotionally step into another person's experience, he treated dependence like defiance. Their son slowly changed. He cried less, not because he felt safer, but because he learned his pain would not be met with comfort. He stopped going to his father for help, then stopped going to anyone. Years later, Alicia realized Jordan did not merely lack warmth, he lacked the emotional architecture required to nurture another human being. Children do not just need food, clothing, and shelter. They need emotional attunement. They need parents who can recognize distress, soothe fear, validate feelings, teach emotional regulation, model compassion. A father without empathy may still provide financially. He may still stay physically present, but emotional absence can wound just as deeply as physical absence. A child raised without empathy often learns, "My feelings are burdensome." Vulnerability is a weakness. Love is conditional on emotional silence. My pain does not matter. Key lesson: watch how someone responds when others are hurting. Not when they are impressed. Not when they are flirting. Not when things are easy. Watch when you cry, a waiter makes a mistake, a child has a meltdown, a friend needs support, someone weaker inconveniences them. Because empathy is revealed most clearly when compassion costs comfort. A person who cannot handle your pain with care will likely struggle to handle a child's pain with patience. Charm can imitate kindness. Empathy cannot be faked consistently over time. Chapter 3 has a pattern of abandoning commitments. The man who leaves when things get heavy. Why a pattern of abandoning commitments predicts future absence. One of the strongest indicators of how someone may behave in fatherhood is how they respond when responsibility stops being enjoyable. Anyone can stay when things are easy. Anyone can be present when the relationship is exciting, the baby is smiling, the family image looks good publicly, the emotional labor is low, sacrifice is minimal. Character is revealed when commitment becomes difficult. A person who repeatedly abandons commitments often does not struggle with love. They struggle with endurance. They may care deeply in the beginning. They may make sincere promises. They may genuinely believe they mean what they say. But when pressure rises, inconvenience appears, or discomfort grows, they retreat. Because for them, commitment lasts only as long as it feels good. People who abandon commitments often display avoidant coping. They escape stress instead of confronting it. Low distress tolerance, hardship feels unbearable. Commitment idealization. They love beginnings but hate maintenance. Emotional impulsivity. They act on current feelings over long-term duty. Self-preservation over loyalty. Their comfort outranks obligation. These individuals often leave a trail behind them. Friendships that ended mysteriously. Jobs quit abruptly. Relationships dropped during conflict. Projects started passionately, abandoned halfway. Family members they don't talk to anymore for vague reasons. The issue is not one failed relationship. The issue is a repeated life pattern of leaving instead of working through difficulty. When Maya met Darius, he seemed deeply devoted. He texted every morning, planned elaborate dates, talked about the future quickly. He told her, "I'm not like other men. When I love hard." At first, his intensity felt like security, but over time Maya noticed a strange pattern. Darius had fallen out with nearly every close friend he once had, been estranged from family for years, quit several jobs because of disrespect, ended multiple past relationships suddenly. Whenever she asked what happened, the answer was always similar. People switch up. Everybody disappoints you eventually. I cut people off when they cross me. At first, Maya interpreted this as standards. Then conflict entered their relationship. The first serious disagreement led to silence. Darius disappeared for 3 days. No explanation, no calls, no texts, then returned to acting normal. When Maya confronted him, "I needed space." "You're too dramatic." Over the next year, the pattern repeated. Whenever life got hard, financial stress, emotional conflict, difficult conversations, family pressure, Darius vanished, emotionally first, then physically. After Maya became pregnant, his fear intensified. He promised, "I'm here, I'm not going anywhere." But pregnancy brought stress, money pressure, fear, less freedom, more responsibility. Darius began pulling away. He answered texts more slowly, stayed out longer, picked fights over small things. Then one day, after an argument about preparing for the baby, he disappeared. No call, no visit, no explanation. Weeks passed, and then months. Eventually, he resurfaced with excuses. "I was overwhelmed. You pushed me away. I needed time to think." But by then, Maya understood. Darius had not abandoned her because fatherhood was unique. He abandoned her because abandonment was his lifelong coping strategy. When pressure came, he left, as he always had. Parenthood is not a temporary commitment. It is not a mood. It is not sustained by excitement. It requires showing up when tired, when broke, when frustrated, when the relationship is strained, when the child is difficult, when appreciation is absent, when life feels overwhelming. A person who historically disappears when things get hard is at risk of doing the same when parenting becomes stressful, because children create relentless stress, and stress exposes coping patterns. Not everyone with a failed relationship or lost friendship is unreliable. Life is complicated. The red flag is a pattern, not isolated events. Ask, do they repeatedly cut people off? Do they vanish during conflict? Do they withdraw whenever accountability arises? Is every former relationship framed as entirely the other person's fault? Do they leave rather than repair? Patterns matter more than promises. A person who runs from difficult commitments in ordinary life may run from parenthood when it stops feeling easy. Many absent fathers were not transformed by parenthood into avoidant men. They were avoidant men long before the child arrived. The child simply became the next commitment they could not sustain. Chapter 4 only values the fun parts of relationships. The man who loves the honeymoon, not the work. Why valuing only the fun parts of relationships signals risk. Some people do not want a partnership. They want the experience of partnership without the responsibilities of one. They love romance, attention, physical intimacy, adventure, public displays of affection, the emotional highs of being wanted, but they withdraw the moment a relationship asks for planning or sacrifice, hard conversations, financial responsibility, long-term commitment, shared burdens. These individuals often mistake pleasure for love. To them, relationships are enjoyable as long as they remain emotionally rewarding and low cost. But the moment the relationship requires maturity, they begin to detach. A person who values only the enjoyable parts of relationships often struggles with emotional immaturity. They associate love with feeling good, not with responsibility. Hedonistic attachment. They prioritize pleasure over duty. Fantasy-based commitment. They want the image of love, not the labor of it. Delayed adulthood. They resist roles that limit freedom or demand sacrifice. Entitlement. They expect relationship benefits without equal contribution. This person may seem deeply loving until love requires inconvenience. Then they become avoidant, irritated, or absent. They may plan extravagant dates but avoid discussing budgeting. Talk about building a future but dodge specifics. Be sexually attentive but emotionally unavailable in conflict. Love posting relationship photos but resist practical commitment. Shut down when conversations become serious. Frame responsibility as killing the vibe. Common phrases include, "Why are you making everything so serious? Can't we just enjoy the moment? You're always stressing about the future. Why do we need labels/plans/timetables? You're ruining the relationship by overthinking." Real life scenario, Andre and the beautiful illusion. Tasha thought Andre was everything she wanted. He was affectionate, passionate, spontaneous, always planning trips, surprises, and romantic nights. He called her beautiful constantly, posted her online proudly, talked about how lucky he was. To outsiders, they looked perfect. But whenever Tasha tried discussing the future, something shifted. When she asked about financial goals, "Why are you worried about money right now?" When she asked where he saw the relationship in 5 years, "Can we not turn everything into an interview?" When she brought up marriage, "Why can't you just enjoy what we have?" When she asked how they'd handle children someday, "We'll figure it out when it happens." Andre loved being a boyfriend. As long as boyfriend meant romance, intimacy, admiration, and excitement, he did not love the responsibilities attached to partnership. Then Tasha became pregnant unexpectedly. At first, Andre was excited. He bought baby clothes and took maternity pictures, talked about fatherhood proudly. But pregnancy changed the relationship. There were budgets to discuss, schedules to coordinate, medical appointments to attend, lifestyle sacrifices to make. Suddenly, Andre changed. He grew irritated. "Why do we have to talk about bills every day? You've changed. Everything is serious now. This relationship isn't fun anymore." After the baby arrived, the shift worsened. Sleep deprivation, stress, constant needs, no spontaneity, no carefree nights. Andre withdrew. He stayed out later, spent more time with friends, complained about losing himself. Eventually, he admitted what Tasha had slowly come to understand. He loved the fantasy of family, not the responsibility of building one. Andre had wanted the affection of a partner, the excitement of romance, the image of fatherhood, but not the labor, the sacrifice, the duty, the discipline. He wanted benefits without burden, and when the burden arrived, his love disappeared with the fun. Parenting contains joy. But much of parenting is not glamorous. It is repetition, exhaustion, sacrifice, financial planning, emotional labor, delayed gratification, showing up when nothing feels rewarding. A man who only thrives when life feels exciting may struggle deeply with the routine and pressure of parenthood. Because children require love that persists when things are boring, hard, thankless, and inconvenient. Watch how someone behaves when a relationship stops being entertaining. Ask yourself, do they engage only when things are fun? Do serious conversations make them withdraw? Do they resent responsibility entering the relationship? Do they confuse commitment with losing freedom? Do they want emotional/physical benefits without a practical partnership? Anyone can love the highlights. Character is revealed in who stays engaged during the mundane, difficult, and demanding parts of life. A good father is not just someone who loves the idea of children. It is someone who can love through sleep deprivation, sacrifice, stress, financial strain, routine, chaos. Because real love is proven in responsibility, not excitement. Chapter 5. Poor emotional regulation. The man ruled by his emotions. Why poor emotional regulation can make fatherhood dangerous. Everyone gets angry. Everyone gets stressed. Everyone has moments of frustration, impatience, or emotional overwhelm. Poor emotional regulation is not about having emotions, it is about being controlled by them. A person with poor emotional regulation struggles to manage internal states in healthy, consistent ways. Their feelings dictate their behavior. Anger becomes aggression, frustration becomes cruelty, stress becomes withdrawal, recklessness, or chaos. And parenting places a person in emotionally demanding situations almost every day. Children are loud, repetitive, unpredictable, emotionally dysregulated by nature, constantly testing patience and boundaries. A father who cannot regulate himself will often expect a child to regulate for him, and when the child inevitably cannot, the parent becomes volatile. This can include explosive anger over minor frustrations, impulsive decisions made in the heat of emotion, extreme mood swings that destabilize the household, silent treatment or emotional withdrawal when upset, breaking things, yelling, punching walls, escalating conflict rather than de-escalating it, regretting behavior afterward but repeating it often. You may hear, "You made me mad." That's just how I am when I'm angry. I can't help it. Everybody pushes me too far. If people didn't annoy me, I wouldn't react like this. The underlying mindset is often, my emotions justify my behavior. When Simone first dated Evan, his intensity felt passionate. He was protective, expressive, energetic. But there were signs. If traffic was bad, he slammed the steering wheel. If food orders were wrong, he snapped at the staff. If plans changed unexpectedly, his entire mood soured. When upset, he became someone else. Cold, sharp, unpredictable, impossible to reason with. Afterward, he always apologized. "I just feel things deeply." "You know I'm passionate." "I'm working on it." Simone believed him. Then they had a daughter. At first, Evan adored her. But babies do not care how tired you are. Toddlers do not respect emotional limits. Children do not behave with adult logic. The first time their daughter spilled juice after being told not to run, Evan exploded. "What is wrong with you?" She froze. Later, when she cried loudly during a sleepless night, he shouted, "Make her stop crying." As she grew older, normal tantrums enraged him. Mistakes were met with disproportionate anger. Minor disobedience triggered lectures, yelling, and intimidation. The household became emotionally unstable. Everyone adapted to Evan's moods. Simone found herself thinking, don't ask him that when he's stressed. Wait until he calms down. Keep the kids quiet when he gets home. Don't bring up problems tonight. Their daughter began monitoring the room constantly, listening to footsteps, reading facial expressions, trying to predict the emotional weather. Not because her father was physically absent, but because his instability made emotional safety impossible. Evan loved his child, but love alone did not protect her from the consequences of his lack of self-control. Because uncontrolled emotions in a parent become the atmosphere a child grows up breathing. Children need correction, but they do not need emotional volatility. A parent must be able to stay calm under stress, discipline without rage, tolerate frustration without escalation, model emotional regulation, teach safety through consistency. A father who cannot regulate his emotions may frighten his children, damage their nervous system through chronic unpredictability, confused fear for respect, teach children to suppress emotions or mirror volatility, pay attention not to whether someone gets upset, but how they handle being upset. Watch how they react when frustrated, how they behave under stress, whether they calm themselves or expect others to calm them, whether apologies are followed by changed behavior, whether anger becomes intimidation. Because parenting is not tested during peaceful moments. It is tested when the baby has cried for 2 hours, the toddler breaks something expensive, the child lies, the teenager rebels. Life is exhausting and no one is at their best. A parent who cannot govern themselves will struggle to guide a child. Children borrow emotional regulation from their caregivers before they develop their own. If the father becomes chaotic every time he feels overwhelmed, the child learns that chaos is normal. Or worse, that love is unpredictable. Chapter 6. Financial Irresponsibility. The man who spends like tomorrow doesn't exist. Why financial irresponsibility is more than a money problem. Money alone does not make someone a good father. A wealthy man can be neglectful. A modest income man can be extraordinary. But while fatherhood does not require wealth, it does require responsibility. Financial irresponsibility is not about income level. It is about how someone manages what they have. A man may earn very little and still be deeply responsible. A man may earn a great deal and still be reckless. The warning sign is not poverty. The warning sign is persistent financial chaos caused by poor choices, denial, and lack of discipline. Because children do not merely need money, they need stability. Financial instability created by irresponsibility often affects every corner of family life. This may include reckless or impulsive spending, living beyond means for appearance/status, chronic unpaid bills or debt from poor planning, no savings despite adequate income, gambling or risky financial behavior, repeatedly borrowing money without repayment, avoiding budgeting or financial conversations, spending on wants before needs, prioritizing image/luxury over obligations. Common rationalizations include, you only live once. Money comes back. I deserve nice things. Why stress about bills all the time? It'll work itself out. The mindset is often immediate gratification matters more than future security. Financial irresponsibility often reflects deeper issues: poor impulse control, lack of long-term thinking, avoidance of adult responsibility, need for validation/status through spending, difficulty tolerating delayed gratification, and parenting is built on delayed gratification. A good father routinely sacrifices his wants for his child's needs. If someone struggles to do that for themselves, they may struggle more when sacrifice becomes permanent. Jasmine admired Malik's confidence. He dressed well, drove a flashy car, always picked up the tab, bought gifts often. He seemed generous, ambitious, and successful, but over time she noticed inconsistencies. Despite his income, he had no savings, constantly paid bills late, borrowed money from friends, carried significant credit card debt, made impulse purchases weekly. Whenever Jasmine brought it up, he laughed. Why are you worried about money so much? We're young. Then she became pregnant. At first, Malik was thrilled. He posted about becoming a father, talked about giving his child the best life. But when practical preparations began, reality collided with fantasy. The crib needed to be bought. Hospital bills arrived. Maternity leave reduced income. Baby supplies became constant expenses. Jasmine suggested making a budget. Malik resisted. I don't want to live like I'm broke. He kept spending. New clothes, expensive dinners, upgrades for his car, nights out with friends. Then 1 month's rent was short. Jasmine discovered Malik had spent their emergency money on a luxury watch. His justification: it was an investment. When the baby arrived, the instability worsened. Utilities were shut off twice. Formula purchases became stressful. Bills piled up. Yet Malik continued living as though fatherhood were an accessory to his life, not a restructuring of priorities. Jasmine eventually realized Malik did not fail financially because he lacked money. He failed because he lacked discipline. He wanted to look more successful than he wanted to build stability. And children cannot live on an image. Financial recklessness creates housing instability, chronic parental conflict, stress-filled households, inconsistent provision for children, emotional insecurity for partners, crisis after crisis that could have been prevented. Children may not understand budgets, but they understand instability. They feel the tension in the home, the fear around bills, the inconsistency in the provision, the anxiety of unpredictable security. Key lesson: look beyond income. Ask, do they budget or avoid the subject? Do they repeatedly live in preventable financial chaos? Do they prioritize wants over obligations? Do they plan for the future? Do their financial habits show discipline or denial? Someone can earn 6 figures and still be financially immature. Someone can earn little and still be an excellent provider through planning, sacrifice, and discipline. Children do not need luxury, they need reliability. A father does not need to be rich, but he must be able to say, "My responsibilities come before my impulses." Because parenthood is a lifelong lesson in putting someone else's needs ahead of your wants. And if a man cannot manage money with discipline before children, children often magnify the consequences of that weakness. Chapter 7. Disrespects or resents children. The man who resents what children naturally are. Why disrespect toward children is one of the clearest warning signs. Some people do not dislike parenting because they dislike responsibility. They dislike parenting because they fundamentally resent the nature of children. They may say they want kids someday. They may like the idea of legacy, family, carrying on their name, or having children who admire them. But liking the idea of children is not the same as liking actual children. Actual children are loud, messy, repetitive, emotionally immature, inconvenient, dependent, unpredictable. A person who consistently reacts to children with irritation, contempt, or disdain is showing you something important. They may want the title of parent, without the reality of what parenting requires. This attitude may show up as calling children annoying or brats as a default, becoming visibly irritated by normal child behavior, mocking children's emotions or fears, referring to parenting their own children as babysitting, acting as though childcare is someone else's job, treating children as interruptions rather than dependents, expecting children to behave with adult-level self-control. Common phrases include, "Kids are so irritating. Why can't they just sit still? He's doing that on purpose. She cries over everything. Watching my own kid isn't my thing. I'm babysitting tonight." That last statement matters. A father is not babysitting his own child. He is parenting. When a man describes active fatherhood as babysitting, he often reveals that he sees caregiving as optional help rather than a fundamental responsibility. People who resent children often struggle with low patience/frustration tolerance, need for control, emotional immaturity, self-centeredness, inability to understand developmental limitations, viewing dependence as a burden rather than a duty. They may expect children to function like miniature adults, and when children behave like children, they respond with irritation rather than understanding. Trevor and the noise. Naomi first noticed it at her sister's birthday party. Her nephews were running around the backyard, laughing loudly. Trevor muttered, "God, kids are unbearable." Naomi laughed awkwardly. "They're just excited." Trevor rolled his eyes. Parents let kids get away with everything these days. Over time, she noticed he reacted similarly whenever children were around, complaining about crying babies in restaurants, snapping when children asked innocent questions, mocking toddlers for tantrums, calling children spoiled for age-appropriate behavior. Still, Trevor insisted, "I'll be different with my own kids." Naomi believed him. Then they had a daughter. At first, Trevor adored the newborn stage when she slept peacefully and looked cute in photos. But as she grew into toddlerhood, reality set in. Toddlers are not calm. They spill things, repeat questions, cry irrationally, demand attention constantly. Trevor became irritated quickly. When their daughter interrupted him, "Can you not right now?" When she cried over a scraped knee, "It's not that serious." When she had tantrums, "She's being manipulative." When Naomi asked him to help, "I already watched her for 2 hours. I need a break." Watched her. As though parenting his daughter were a favor. As though caring for his own child were temporary volunteer work. Eventually, Trevor spent less time at home. He stayed late at work, took unnecessary outings, retreated into hobbies, not because he lacked love, but because he resented the constant demands of parenthood. Naomi eventually understood. Trevor did not hate fatherhood because he was overwhelmed. He hated fatherhood because he fundamentally disliked being around children when they behaved like children. Children need more than provision. They need caregivers who enjoy their presence, understand developmental behavior, Respond with patience. Accept that dependency is normal. View caregiving as a responsibility, not a burden. A father who resents children often creates a household where kids feel unwanted, annoying, like burdens, afraid to need help, ashamed for acting their age. Key lesson. Pay close attention to how someone behaves around children before they become a parent, not what they say. Watch their patience with crying, their reaction to childish behavior, whether they show warmth or contempt, whether they understand developmental limitations, whether they expect unrealistic maturity from children. Because many people imagine they will feel differently with their own child. Sometimes they do, but many do not, and children should not be the experiment. A person who consistently resents children for acting like children may struggle deeply with fatherhood. Good parenting requires more than love. It requires genuine tolerance for the nature of childhood itself, because children are not inconveniences. They are developing human beings, and a father who sees them as burdens will often make them feel like one. Chapter 8. Unresolved trauma/immaturity with no desire to grow. The wounds he refuses to heal. Why unresolved trauma and emotional immaturity can shape a child's entire world. Everyone enters adulthood carrying something: pain, loss, family wounds, abandonment, fear, shame. Experiences that shaped them before they had the tools to understand them. Trauma itself does not make someone unfit to be a parent. Many extraordinary parents have painful histories. The issue is not whether someone has wounds. The issue is, do they take responsibility for healing them? Because unhealed pain rarely stays contained. It leaks into relationships and into conflict, into self-worth, into parenting. And when someone refuses self-reflection, accountability, or growth, their unresolved wounds often become their child's inheritance. A person struggling with unresolved trauma or emotional immaturity may blame all present problems on their past, but do nothing to change. Refuse therapy, introspection, or feedback. Repeat destructive patterns while insisting, "This is just who I am." Become defensive when their behavior is questioned. Lack emotional insight into their own triggers. Expect others to manage their wounds for them. Use pain as an explanation and an excuse simultaneously. Common phrases include, "That's just how I was raised." "Everybody has trauma." "Therapy is for weak people." "I don't need to talk about my past." "People need to accept me how I am." If you knew what I've been through, you'd understand. Past pain can explain behavior, but an explanation is not an exemption. Emotional immaturity means someone may struggle to regulate reactions, take disagreement as a personal attack, need constant validation, prioritize ego over resolution, collapse under stress, make everyone else's feelings your responsibility. Under normal circumstances, these issues may seem manageable. Under the pressure of parenting, they often intensify because children trigger unresolved wounds, demand sacrifice, remove emotional comfort, challenge identity and control, expose every coping weakness. Rico and the house he grew up in. When Danielle met Rico, she knew his childhood had been hard. His father had abandoned the family. His mother was volatile. Home had been chaotic. Danielle felt compassion for him, and in many ways, Rico was loving. But whenever conflict arose, something darker surfaced. If Danielle criticized him gently, he exploded. "You think I'm a failure like everybody else?" If she asked him to communicate, "Stop trying to psychoanalyze me." If she suggested counseling after repeated fights, "Therapy is for people who can't handle life." Rico constantly referenced his past, but never examined it. He acknowledged pain only to justify behavior, never to change it. Then they had a son. At first, Rico swore, "I'm gonna be better than my father." But fatherhood triggered wounds he never healed. When the baby cried constantly, Rico interpreted it as rejection. When the toddler preferred Danielle, he became resentful. When his son disobeyed, Rico heard disrespect where none existed. He snapped often, then justified it. "My father was way worse than me. At least I'm here." He needs to toughen up. Danielle watched in heartbreak as Rico unconsciously recreated pieces of the childhood he claimed to hate, not because he wanted to hurt his son, but because pain left unexamined often repeats itself in new forms. His trauma had not disappeared, it had simply changed direction, and now it flowed downward into his child. Parenthood does not erase wounds, it often exposes them. A parent who refuses growth may project their insecurities onto their child, discipline from personal triggers instead of wisdom, repeat harmful family patterns unconsciously, make children responsible for their emotional stability, use authority to mask emotional fragility. Children raised by emotionally immature parents often learn to manage the parents' feelings, to suppress their own needs, to avoid conflict at all costs, to confuse emotional unpredictability with love. Key lesson. Ask not whether someone has trauma. Ask, do they acknowledge their wounds honestly? Do they seek healing or just excuses? Can they reflect on their behavior? Do they accept accountability? Are they actively trying to grow? Pain does not disqualify someone from parenthood. Refusal to heal can. Unhealed trauma does not stay buried. It often resurfaces in the relationships that demand the most from us. A person unwilling to confront their pain may unintentionally pass it on. Because children do not merely inherit genetics, they often inherit unresolved emotional patterns. And the most dangerous family cycles are not always intentional. They are repeated by people who swore they'd never become what hurt them. Chapter 9. History of neglecting existing children. The father he already is. Why his treatment of existing children is the clearest predictor of future fatherhood. When evaluating who someone may become, nothing is more revealing than who they already are. People can make promises. They can describe intentions. They can swear they will do better next time. They can insist that circumstances were different before. But when someone already has children, speculation ends. You no longer have to imagine what kind of parent they might be. You can observe it, because the strongest predictor of future behavior is established past behavior. A man who consistently neglects his existing children is showing you his parenting character in real time. And believing he will become radically different under nearly identical responsibility requires ignoring evidence in favor of hope. Neglect is not always dramatic abandonment. Sometimes it appears as rarely seeing the child despite the opportunity, inconsistent financial support, only showing up when convenient, making promises and repeatedly breaking them, prioritizing dating/social life over parenting, being emotionally detached during visits, using the child for appearances/public image, treating parenting as optional participation. Many neglectful parents maintain a narrative that minimizes their behavior. My baby mama keeps the kids from me. The system is unfair. I send money when I can. They're better off with their mother anyway. My child doesn't really know me like that. Sometimes those claims are true, but when every explanation removes all accountability, caution is warranted. Why people ignore this red flag? Many people believe he'll be different with me. That situation was complicated. His ex was difficult. He was younger then. He's changed. And while people can change, true change is visible in sustained action, not hopeful promises. If someone claims they have changed, evidence should exist. Consistent visitation, reliable support, genuine accountability, improved relationship with existing children, active efforts to repair prior neglect. Without that, the pattern likely remains. Devon's weekend promises. When Keisha met Devon, she knew he had a son from a previous relationship. He framed the situation carefully. My ex is bitter. She makes it hard for me to see him. Keisha sympathized. At first it sounded plausible, but over time details emerged. Devon forgot scheduled visits often, sent child support late or inconsistently, bought expensive gifts for himself while claiming money was tight, rarely called his son unless reminded, spoke of parenting as an obligation rather than a joy. Still, Devon insisted, when I have a family done right, it'll be different. Keisha wanted to believe him. Then she became pregnant. At first, Devon was attentive. He promised, "I learned from my mistakes." But once their daughter arrived, the same familiar pattern returned. He missed feedings, skipped appointments, avoided overnights, complained about child support, stayed inconsistent. Soon, Keisha found herself hearing the same excuses his ex once had, and one day the truth hit her with painful clarity. Devon had not failed his first child because of a difficult woman. He failed because that was his pattern as a father. She had not witnessed a misunderstanding, she had witnessed evidence and ignored it. A person who neglects one child may neglect another because the issue is rarely the specific child. The issue is often character, priorities, emotional maturity, discipline, capacity for sacrifice, view of parenting itself. If someone can disengage from one dependent child, they have demonstrated a willingness to disengage when parenthood becomes inconvenient. Key lesson: when someone has existing children, pay attention to how often do they see them, how do they speak about them, whether they provide consistently, whether they know basic details about their child's life, whether they make excuses or take accountability, whether their children seem emotionally connected to them. Do not focus only on what they say. Observe what their children's lives reveal. When someone shows you how they parent their current children, believe what you see. Hope is not stronger than evidence. Potential is not stronger than pattern. And a person's promises about future fatherhood should never outweigh the reality of how they treat the children who already depend on them, because the clearest window into who someone may become. It's often who they already are when responsibility is real. Across all these chapters, the central lesson remains the same. Fatherhood does not magically create character, it reveals it. Children rarely transform irresponsible, avoidant, immature men into stable fathers. More often, parenthood magnifies what was already there.